Oh, welcome, Dr. Lynch, for our interview today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, you've just published your first book, and was it the top 10, right, in the first week on Amazon?
Yeah, I got all the way up to number 4 and was the number 7th fastest selling book in the entire United States. And yeah, we made 4 bestsellers lists, and it was a whirlwind experience, and it's still flying off the shelves. So I'm super thankful and glad it's getting in the hands of people who need it.
Great. So you've spent so many years on researching genes, researching epigenetics, on top of your background as a naturopathic doctor, researching all these little griddle things. When do you think came the point when you're ready to say, okay, now I'm going to write a book. I have to get it out to people?
Yeah, it's a great question, because it all started for me with that one gene, MTHFR, and I was working with MTHFR, and I had some great success with it with some people, and others I didn't, and I was trying to solve that, and I felt okay, I'm getting pretty good at MTHFR, but I still had a lot of riddles that weren't being resolved. So I did a lot of research and presented at conferences, which you've been to, every one, which was awesome.
I think, yeah, with the exception of one.
Yeah, so it was great seeing you there, and I think what finally hit me to write a book was I started finding a consistent pattern, and I was finding consistent results. And when you have that, it's time to write a book. And yeah, because you find yourself repeating yourself over and over again. And so when I found myself repeating myself over and over again, and people would start applying it, they're like, oh, wow, that really does work. Mm-hmm. Whereas before, it's like I've been told for years, I was told, Ben, you need to write a book on MTHFR. Ben, you need to write a book on genetics. I didn't have that repetition. I did not have the results. Mm-hmm. And, when I got that, it was time to write it. And I will still tell you, it was still very hard to write because, you know me, I'm really individualistic, and I really want to focus on the person themselves. So I made Dirty Genes like a choose your own adventure book, which is pretty cool. It's really adapted to the reader based upon the quizzes. Even the recipes are dialed down to the individual person, because you can tweak the recipes based upon how your genes are responding at that time, which is pretty remarkable. I think it's the only recipes maybe even ever written in a book like that. So yeah, we pulled it off, and happy with it.
I saw people can pick. So based on their own background, based on their own symptoms, they can really pick and choose from the book. So I saw that. It's very individualistic. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hesitating because there was so much wrong going into the book. Mm-hmm. And it was so top 40, like when you listen to the top 40 hits nowadays, I can't believe it's all rap, but hey, that's what it is. You look at the best-selling books out there, and they have a recipe, and there's a certain pattern that they follow. So I was told to give it some glorious title, which was the 7 Deadly Genes. And then I was told to write a 14-day program to clean up your deadly genes. And then I was told, you give me a meal plan to give the reader, like tell them what to buy and when to eat and what to eat. And I fought them on every single one. I changed the name from the 7 Deadly Genes to Dirty Genes. And that was a struggle. I struggled from saying it was a 14-day program to a breakthrough program, because you can't clean your genes in 14 days. It's a lifestyle. It's something you do all the time. There's no 14-day gimmick. And then the other one was, you can't have meal plans because I don't know how people are doing this particular day or this particular moment or their particular location. So I had to come up with recipes that people could adapt and modify based upon their current real genetic expression. And once I will admittedly say, won all those battles, I was pretty happy. But I also have to say I was pretty pleased with their ideas of bringing quizzes to individualize it and so on. So, I mean, they had great points, the publishers, but, they definitely have a mindset of where they want the book to go.
Pattern.
So when you're writing your own book, you have to definitely give pushback.
Yeah. So it seems like without consultants, we're nothing, right? We need help from other people.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, that's the whole point of the book is, you know, when you get the book, the first thing you do is you learn what genes are, what they do, how they function, how they get dirty, meaning what makes you have symptoms, and then how you clean them up. And let's say you do the entire program in the book, right? You do the whole program and you're still not feeling well. Well, there's a whole lab appendix in the back where you can work with your health coach or your practitioner, your health, you know, what have you, and order these labs and go over them. And you can order a Strategene genetic report and look at that with your 23andMe results and dive deeper and deeper and deeper. Dirty Genes gives you that overview that we all need to have and appreciate.
Yeah.
That genes are not set in stone and SNPs aren't all bad, right? They have benefits to them. And so we get into that in the book, and then we tell you, you know, how the things which you can do to support them that are very down to the genetic level and personality types that you can get. But working with a number of different types of people and different experts is key. And, you know, the labs is one, and then we have a whole nother appendix in there about, you know, beauty products. I mean, because beauty products are everywhere, and mattresses and air filters and water filters. And so it is a constant need for evaluating and working together in a collaborative way. And so, you know, getting on your podcast is appreciated because it's one more way we can deliver great content and information to people.
Yeah. So I actually have a question for you regarding to what you just said. When I have clients that come in and they have never heard any of this and they just know they're sick and they need help, and I start telling them, you know, how to clean up the environment, how to clean up the diet, all these things, they very easily get overwhelmed. It feels undoable for them, right? So do you have any experience with that? Any of how to scale it down to, okay, one thing a week or one, you know, it's
it's a great point. And you know, it's a lot of work. You know, you're telling someone to, you know, the storm hit and you know, you gotta rebuild everything. And it is really, Rome was, you know, wasn't built in a day, as common, right? You heard that over, you know, brick by brick. So what I like to tell people is the ABCs of clean genes. You know, you go to drbenlynch.com, there's a bonus chapter there called the ABCs of clean genes. And I'd say the 26 steps, it's a lot of steps, but what these steps are is letter of the alphabet. And A is avoid. That's the first step. You know, don't add anything to your life. Don't complicate anything. Start avoiding. A, it's free. B, it's less work for you to do because you're minimizing your life. You know, you're reducing the things that you have to do, and you're finding the things that are causing more work for you, because more work for you means more work for your genes, because you are a amazing symphony of 19,000 genes coordinating, communicating with each other, but they're doing that based upon your input.
Right.
And so if you're inputting things that are not suitable for you, well, you need to avoid those because your genes are responding to those. So avoidance is step one. And I love starting there. And when I had a conference to a number of parents with autistic children, you know, they're going to all these different talks at this conference, and they're telling them to take these supplements and do these tests and, you know, eat this types of food and do this type of XYZ. And I told them, said, look, just find things that, you know, to avoid. That's it. Keep it simple. And not just gluten and dairy. I'm not talking about that because that can be hard work. I'm talking about stressors. I'm talking about tasks that you are doing that you need to get rid of. So, you know, that I think that's the big one. For me, I avoid alcohol. We just got back from a ski trip, which is why I look like a raccoon right now from the goggles. But it was funny because we brought a bottle of wine, and for an entire week vacation, just one bottle. And I just saw my wife pull it out of the suitcase untouched and put it back in the garage.
Oh, really?
Because we don't drink. And I looked at the bottle not every day, like a few times while I was on vacation. And I looked at it and I was like, God, I'd like to have some right now. But I was like, if I have some tomorrow, I won't be at my best and I'll be tired in the morning and I won't enjoy skiing as much. So I just avoided it.
Making the choice that with the lower impact. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you just brought up some really interesting picture. I was watching a movie this weekend with my kids about the Amish, and the interesting part is how they rebuild their barns. If a barn burns down, the whole town comes up and there's like 50, 60 strong men, and they go and they rebuild that barn in one day. So I was thinking about that picture when you said the storm came, everything got destroyed, it needs to be rebuilt. And how maybe community is a big thing where you can't just have maybe one practitioner or one person help you. You need this community of people that help you rebuild your life, kind of thing.
Yeah. And how many of us, Jan, are struggling with a lack of community? I mean, we have social media now, and it's great, but it's a great tool, but a lot of people are reliant upon that as their main social network. So if your house literally does burn down or you have a problem and you're gravitating towards social media instead of a real living community, that's a big problem. And so I think that social media, it's in itself is one of those things to add to the avoid list if you're looking at it, too much. I mean, I enjoy social media. I use it. I like it, but I also don't abuse it. And if I find myself abusing it, I make that mental note, like, oh, I should be off of here. I shouldn't be on here right now. So if you're trying to do everything and, as using social media as a tool for your community, it's not enough. We're humans. We're herd animals, I believe.
I think so too. Yeah, it's amazing what it does. And some people, I guess, feel isolated because their immediate community, their family or their friends, they just don't know anything about this lifestyle. So then they feel they're all by themselves and they can't do it. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they can send us some people to help them educate their immediate surroundings too.
Yeah. And, that's another interesting point that you bring up, because, we have family and friends that are sick also, right? Because health, you just showed me that cool diagram behind you there of the, where you're feeling quote unquote normal, where you're falsely healthy, right? And that's a dangerous place to be. Even Brendan Bouchard talks about the comfort level where you've had some success, and now you sit on that and you don't continue to grow. And if you continue, depression will sit in, and you'll be stuck. But what's really important, I lost my train of thought. Dang it.
The immediate, the immediate.
Oh yeah. Thank you. So if you're, what I've seen, which was really neat, is people get their copy of Dirty Genes and they no longer feel scared about genetics, and they feel really empowered, and they're seeing results. That's the cool thing. And I asked a woman, I said, give me a negative. What didn't you like about the book? Because I like finding where I can improve myself. And she goes, well, every chapter that I read, I wanted to call 10 people and tell them I know what's wrong. And that was pretty cool. I mean, for negative, that was pretty cool. But at the same time, it is a true negative, because what happens is you get that excitement and you want to share your knowledge and your enthusiasm with someone, and they look at you like you're coming from Mars and you're naked, and they don't even want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And you keep trying because you're so excited, and you keep trying, and then you start getting mad at them, and you start feeling bad about yourself, and they tell you to shut up and go away and leave me alone. And so now your enthusiasm is now pushed down because somebody else is not ready for what you're trying to provide them. So if you are sick, I tell people, look, read the book for yourself first. If you buy Dirty Genes to support your child or your loved one, your mom or your dad or your sister, no. You do it for yourself first. And then you can tell people, you can bring the excitement to someone else. If they're ready for it, they'll tell you. If they're not, you planted the seed, walk away.
Right.
Walk away. Don't get frustrated with it, because I would say, what do you think, Jan? 9 out of 10 people will just kind of go like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, maybe even 9.5 out of 10 people
I
will
agree.
nod their head and say, oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, I'll buy it. I'll read it. But in reality is they won't.
Right. Unless it's shown on TV.
Well, unless it's shown on TV, and then, that will help, but it will still, there's a great post by Tibby, worked with Sachin Patel, and Tibby is out and about traveling the world right now. And he made a great post on his Facebook page. And he said that, a lot of people will read, but you should read, implement,
Right.
read, implement. I found that really interesting. And so if even if it's on TV and they read the book, that's great, but you have to implement what are actually in the pages. Right. Otherwise, you still will not receive benefit.
You'll have knowledge versus wisdom, right? So basically a lack of experience. And yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
A really big thing that I liked about the book is that you talk about tuning in with your body and the intuition. I think that's a big thing I try to teach my clients, instead of giving them meal plans and, eat this at this time and don't eat any more and don't eat any less, which I think is completely out of tune. Do you have any tips on helping them? I mean, I have my own experience of how I got healthy and tuned into my body, and I actually didn't need any books to get rid of autoimmune stuff. But do you have any tips for people that have a hard time doing that? They've neglected themselves for a long time, or anything about the topic?
For sure. The first one would be just start with breathing. Just right now, are you breathing? And I know some of you will be sitting there like, wow, I was actually holding my breath, or I was actually breathing faster, or I was breathing with my mouth open. So I invite you to tune in to how you're breathing right now, because that's something you can measure. Right. And are you breathing with your mouth open? And I'm not saying like a gaping, huge mouth. I'm like your lips apart. Are your lips apart and you're breathing through your mouth? Are your sinuses clear? Are both nostrils open, patent, and available to deliver air equally? Mm-hmm. Is one nostril closed versus the other? And is it a strain for you? Are you breathing more up here versus down in your abdomen? Put your hand on your abdomen. Are you breathing with your belly? Or are you breathing way up here? And since Jan and I are sitting, it's easier for us to hunch over and have more shallow breathing. And especially as we're talking, you tend to have more shallow breath too. So, and if your hands are cold, I mentioned this in the NOS3 chapter, nitric oxide synthase 3 chapter. If your hands are cold, and mine are actually warm, and at the moment it's really cold here in Seattle right now. We have snow on the ground, which is pretty rare. And so if your hands are cold, then I would take a tune into your breathing. So I'd first start tuning into things that you can measure. And then you start, getting good at that. And then you start tuning into next things. Your mouth. Is it dry? Is it damp? Is your mucus in your mouth thick or not? So, is your skin feel good or is it oily? Just start being more aware. And what I like to do, Jan, when I wake up in the morning is oftentimes before I even open my eyes in the morning, I will tune in. Mm-hmm. And I'll go, not in any real order. I don't have an order in which I do it, but, maybe some people want to go in order from head to toe. How's your head? Do you have a headache? Are your eyes, itchy or dry? Is your nose, can you breathe through your nose? Is your mouth dry? If you wake up with a dry mouth, maybe you're mouth breathing, maybe you're dehydrated. So, do you have a cramp anywhere? Is your certain muscle sore? Is your neck kinked? Did you sleep properly? So I think first tuning into things, how you can measure. Breath is a big one. And then when you wake up first thing in the morning, and then when you go to bed at night, you can also tune in. But I also tune in like you, Jan. I don't like giving people recipe books to follow a menu plans, because maybe you don't want to eat. I didn't eat this morning until 12 o'clock, and I had a cold smoothie and I made myself freezing. So that's why I have my coat on right now.
No, I think it's really important that people learn to start becoming aware of the cues that the body is giving them. So I had, nobody knows the story really, but I had an autoimmune disease in my blood vessels. I was 30 and the doctor said, I didn't know what was going on. I just had needle pins. I hadn't studied anything. And they just said, we have to cut you, we have to laser you. They put Sharpies on my legs. They didn't even introduce themselves. So I said, what can I do? And it's irreversible, right? And so basically I read a few books about it and just realized they all say it's irreversible. There's nothing I can do. So I threw all the books away, including the nutrition books, and just started listening to my body and thought, there's got to be a way out. There's got to be, just you have to trust in your own feedback system.
Yes.
And fine tune it, right? Make it more sensitive and start picking up the cues. And with just a little information, which was basically I stopped eating dairy, I started hiking every day, and I started doing a lot of flavonoids. And within a year, I was rid of my varicose vein stage 2 deep lying invisible. Right? It was unbelievable.
Good job. Good job. Yeah, just the other day, I don't forget what I ate. I think it was peanut butter. I can't remember. Let's just say it was peanut butter. I felt fine. And, but then I noticed my forehead got a little bit, heavier and cloudier. And, I wasn't anxious, but I was a little bit higher level than I felt I should be. And I felt warmer than I was prior. And then I said, okay, well, these are all histamine responses. And so I'm a little bit higher histamine. You're like, well, how in the hell do you know that? And say, well, I know that peanut butter can be high histamine. And I also know that my liver can get congested from the fats and cause issues there, but it was mainly higher histamine. And so I took a probiotic, which metabolizes the histamine, and I drank more water, and I neutralized those feelings, and I got back to my baseline because I know what my baseline is.
Right.
I know where I want to be, and I feel quite good now. I feel like I'm at my baseline. My head is a little bit heavy right now. I feel probably because it's my third interview already for the day, but I feel like I could use a little bit more methylfolate and a little bit more electrolytes and maybe a bit more potassium. So I know that because I know myself. Right. And I teach in the book that symptoms are signs of genes not functioning at their best, or they're functioning too quickly. So they're functioning too quickly, too slowly. And when they're doing it out of whack a bit, but it's not really out of whack, it's just what the signals you're giving them, then you can modify how they're working based upon certain things, and you can get yourself back to baseline again. But you can't do that unless you understand that peanut butter is higher histamine, or too much protein at night can make too much dopamine and histamine also and keep you not sleeping. So you get these insights, and then it's easier to tune in also.
You basically take the advanced information like we guys you provide in your book, and then you start trying to tune into the body. So one of the experiences I had is that you start listening to your body, and once you are able to listen and follow what your body is telling you, don't drink this milk, don't do this, don't eat that peanut butter, then it actually becomes more and more sensitive. So people complain, oh my goodness, now I'm sensitive against everything. So I wonder, there may be a line maybe where you have to stop and still keep a little resiliency, right? Like not be 100% clean.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a great point, because then you're thinking, oh, I should avoid peanut butter, right? I shouldn't eat peanut butter. No, it's not what I'm saying. So I'm glad you brought that up. The point is, know that peanut butter, for me, that peanut butter had that effect on me. And so I knew how to balance that out. Mm-hmm. And so I just balanced it out. And I eat peanut butter. I don't eat it every day. I mean, maybe once a week, twice a week, max. But I need to know that that's how it can make me feel. And I've been really pushing my diet lately, Jan, to see how much I can eat until I cause myself symptoms. I eat things that I wouldn't eat before, like peanut butter, for example. I would eat sunflower almond butter. I didn't touch peanut butter. Now I'm eating that. I even introduced gluten. I think you were with me at that one restaurant. Remember at the last conference, you were there, and I took a bite gluten. And at the conference, I don't remember if I reacted to it or not, but I had gluten the other day. And If I had bread, I'll react. But I had fish and chips the other day, I was okay. And before, if I had just a little bit of fish and chips because of the gluten batter on it, I would react. But I'm seeing how resilient my genes are based upon the improvements that I've made in my life. And I will say that the more stressed I am, I've learned that the more stressed I am, then I can't have really any wheat and I can't really have any peanut butter because my stress will increase my histamine levels. So I avoid those foods when I'm really putting a lot of work on my genes. I just don't eat them. But when I'm more relaxed, like on vacation, when I had those fish and chips, I was fine.
Yeah. I had a full-blown allergic reaction once. I don't have allergies, but many, many years ago, a doctor told me you're an allergic type. I never had an allergy in my life. And I was working on an organic farm and we had a fire. The thing was burning down basically. And all the animals were running away. All the insects were flying towards us. And there a wasp came and stung me because she was so stressed. She didn't know what to do. And I never had an allergy at that point because I was stressed because of the fire. I had a full-blown allergic reaction. I had to go home. I had to do like tons of antioxidants to calm it down. I was like, wow, stress, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, plus all the pollution from the fire itself, probably. Yeah. So you got the stressors of the physical, the emotional stress of it, plus the physical stress with the smoke, and then you add a stinger on top of it. Yeah, it's, you know, and whereas if you just were walking down and you got stung on a beautiful sunny day, you know, it's like, yeah, but it's how much work. It's like you have somebody bugging you, right? Like your kids or someone, you know, there's a point in which you tell them, that's enough, stop it, you know, but you'll take so much and your genes will do the same thing, you know,
and try to function.
Yeah, right. You know, they're going to break. It's like this glass of water, you know, it holds only so much. So you start overfilling the cup, you got symptoms.
Right. Yeah. That's the one concern I have with if we go only by symptoms, if we only go by intuition, that I have a little concern that there may be, let's say food intolerances, that they may be going on under the hood and subclinical without symptoms. And we feel okay, we eat a little this, eat a little that. And then 20 years later, it turns out our villi are atrophied, right? Our skin is destroyed. So that's a one concern that I have, that maybe we need to do intuition backed up by labs and backed up by monitoring. Maybe.
Oh, just for sure. Yeah. And that's why there's also a full lab you know, I think it's Appendix A. The first appendix in the back of the book is full lab testing. And there's a section in there for general labs. And I recently gave a presentation to a group of mortgage lenders and realtors. And I was talking about dirty genes, and I asked them, I said, okay, how many of you know your homocysteine levels? You know, nobody raised their hand. So when was the last time your homocysteine levels were checked? And they're like, what's homocysteine? I was like, oh boy. So you know, intuition is important, and you know, I use it a lot. But when you are trying to do disease prevention, just again, like that graph that you have, you know, if you feel like you're green, your normal might actually be yellow or red in terms of harm, because that's what you're used to.
Right.
And you have no idea of the potential that you can be as an individual. Maybe you can be 100 times better than you're feeling right now, but you don't know that because you're normal. You've been living a life for so long that at such a lower capacity, but you don't know because it's normal. So I think lab testing could be a real eye opener for people. In fact, Alessandro Ferretti, who you know, Jan, he did he was working on these Olympic athletes and just superstar men and women, right? For their health. Their blood sugar was whacked. I mean, horrible. Their lipoprotein little a is high, and their stress levels, you know, he monitored their stress, huge amounts of stress. And so it was basically Mr. Fit was going to have a heart attack. And so he fixed their cholesterol. He identified the stressors, which was having a lot of guests over. He thought he enjoyed having guests at his house. But when he looked at the monitoring that Alessandro was doing with him with the tracking devices, every time he had a guest over, his heart rate variability just went way down. So he basically said, okay, well, you need to stop having so many guests over And what happens when you have guests over? Well, I enjoy cooking for all of them. Well, apparently you don't.
Right.
So, yeah.
Interesting. I did that on the freeway, and I was driving 65 cruise control on the right lane and monitoring my HRV, my heart rate. And just the thought of switching lanes and overtaking the truck in front of me spiked it crazy. And I was like,
Mm.
this is a task we do 100 times every day, especially, you know, if you live in our area here where it's very busy. So it was very interesting to see through the tracking the effects that things have on you that we don't even know. You know.
Yeah, I love tracking. In fact, I usually have an Oura ring, and I don't know where it went off to. It just I don't know. I've been really implementing time restricted feeding in my life, and you know, I wouldn't really call it intermittent fasting. I would call it more time restricted feeding. So I still am weak about stopping eating earlier in the evening, but I will not introduce food later in the day until I start sensing that I'm hungry or I need food. I don't wait too long, because that's a problem. You get stuck in a cycle. I don't push it. I don't try to be macho. I just eat when I feel it. On days where I'm call and collected, yesterday, for example, I woke up, had a glass of electrolytes. I did not eat until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was skiing hard in deep powder through trees, and very demanding physically. I was totally fine. I got hungry by 2 o'clock. So other days I woke up and I was hungry and I had a smoothie. And so I just tuned into that. So yeah, it's the intermittent fasting is a powerful tool, but the Oura Ring is a great tracking device. And I really am a big proponent of that. It really, because I thought my sleep was okay. And I mean, how do you test your sleep, right? So the Oura Ring is actually a good way to test your sleep. And I saw that I had 5 or 6 minutes of deep sleep, and I was lying to myself that, oh, computer monitors don't affect me. You know, I can work at night and I'm bulletproof. No, I wrecked my deep sleep. So I fixed it with the Oura Ring. Thank you for that. And
Did you
yeah.
do blue light stuff, or did you just reduce screen time?
Well, what I would do is I would work. You know, I'd wake up and work basically 8 to 4, and I would stop when my kids come home from school, and I do activities with them, and I go to bed, and I start working around 9:30 or 10 for an hour or so before bed. I like to do research and stuff before bed, because I felt that it calmed me down, and it did, but it also spiked my neurotransmitters in my brain, got me thinking, and then I wasn't sleeping well. So blue light, I did have the F.lux flux thing on my computer, but that wasn't enough. I had also tried watching Netflix movies to unwind at night, thinking I needed that. That didn't work either, even with the blue light filter. It was the fact that I was receiving input through a screen and, you know, a movie or a show. I try to watch shows rather than movies because they're shorter. But I'm not 100%, but I'm probably, I would say 85 to 90% now. Even have the computer in my room anymore. I just leave it out here.
What do you do to calm down? Do you do breathing, or just think about, like, plan for the next day, or what do you do to calm down a little bit?
That's a good question. You know, I don't really have a routine at night. I need to start implementing. You know, I know Mike Mutzel and other folks, Sean Stevenson, they'll meditate every night, even for just 5 to 15 minutes. And they'll also do it in the morning. And out of the bed, not in the bed. They say they have a better result when they actually meditate out of the bed, not while in it. So my routine is, what I do now is I try to turn off as many lights off in the house as I can, as early as I can. And that's tough with 3 kids. That
works for me crazy.
Yeah, my wife and I'm not a light person. I have amazing night vision. I think I'm part cat. I have anti-lights in the evening. I can see really well in the dark, so I'm good, but my wife can't. And so she flips on all the lights, but I try to minimize light exposure. And then I will, you know, maybe read a couple of pages in a book, or, you know, look at Facebook posts from friends, but nothing of value.
Books are great because you don't get the monitor, right? You could still get something for a brain like ours that's a little active at night. And then, yeah. So I have a question though. This is a little different. Should I go? No, this is a little different topic. So people around me are really big into fermentation these days. And when I read the DAO part in your book, I got a little concerned because they're pushing it as fermentation is the solution for everything.
Right.
We're all lacking probiotics, right? So do you have any experience with the more natural food side? And maybe you can also mention, probiotic supplements, but on which ones may be more beneficial, which ones may not be so great in terms of histamine and reactions.
Yeah, I think where we get in trouble, Jan, is when we think that, you hear from your friend or family member or practitioner that, oh, I do so well with kombucha, or I do so well in the paleo, I do so well in GAPS, I do awesome on keto. And so then you try it and, these fermented products. And so everybody around you now is just like, oh, I'm feeling great with these things. And you try it and you feel worse. You're like, what the heck? Am I doing it wrong? And so you ask your friend again. I was like, well, what do I do? What recipes are you using? What products are you using? And so then you try it and you still feel worse. You're like, what the heck? So it's not that simple. I mean, some of us can have critters in our gut like Blastocystis hominis, and this type of bacteria is very, very common. In fact, I've had it, and I might even still have it. My entire family had it. And this is a bacteria that produces a massive amounts of histamine in your gut, and so fermented foods, can introduce histamine in your gut. And if your methylation cycle isn't working, if your DAO gene is dirty, i.e. not working right, and you introduce more histamine in your digestive system, then your body is actually absorbing that histamine, and it's now in your blood. It goes into your brain, and you get irritable, anxious, runny nose, itchy skin, and so on. But, it might not be good for you, and especially if you're stressed out. But on the flip side, if you go on vacation and you're relaxed and you get a good deep sleep and you're exercising that's appropriate for you and you're in a great mood, and then you try fermented products and you're fine, and you're like, what the heck? I didn't think I could eat these. Well, your histamine levels are varying all the time. And if your blood flow is good, your nitric oxide synthase gene is working really well, and you have warm hands and feet, and histamine is a backup also to your body for vasodilation, inflammation basically. So if your inflammation goes down, your histamine goes down. And if your nitric oxide levels go down, i.e. your cardiovascular system isn't working well, histamine will try to increase blood flow for you as well. So you have to make sure your NOS3 gene is working well. So, and MTHFR, you've taken a bunch of folic acid and you're not eating healthy, then you're going to be inflamed and histamine will be spiking. And certain probiotics, like you just mentioned earlier, Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Lactobacillus acidophilus, and I think Lactobacillus fermentum. There's these strains I know produce histamine, and there's some other Lactobacillus that do as well. All bifidobacteria probiotics do not produce histamine, but many of the Lactobacillus ones do. And but you want to have some Lactobacillus, right? You got to have a balance. And so, after 3 years of research, I finally put strains together. I was reluctant about doing this because I know histamine is good. We need histamine to stimulate stomach acid. So if you have too much stomach acid, you could be high histamine, which is also a recommendation, isn't it, Jan, for people who have GERD, to reduce basically histamine-containing foods. Yeah, so that you got to have histamine for stimulating your digestion. You have to have histamine for stimulating your bowel movements. You have to have histamine for stimulating your immune system. It's important for blood flow and so on. But too much, insomnia, irritability. If you take your fingers and you scratch your arm, so I'm scratching my arm right now, did it a few times.
You good?
Nothing.
Do you mean red color or white color?
Yes, red color. Nothing. And I scratched myself. Yeah, I can even see the white where I scratched myself. I scratched it kind of too hard. But if you've got a lot of histamine and you scratch your arm, it will be red.
Red.
So fermented foods for you, I probably think not.
That's an easy test, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you bring up a lot of good things. So the stress one, I hear you saying that over and over again. We have a practitioner, a colleague in our group that moved to Mexico. And she moved to Mexico, and a couple of weeks later, she started posting. She's like, oh my goodness, I am so much better with my own health because life down here is slow.
Yes.
You know, people sit together and eat for an hour, and they talk and they chat. And so she was saying all these things about stress reduction, and she's saying, you know, maybe we're totally underestimating the stress that we're under in our daily lives, commuting to work, you know, like picking up the kids, getting something to eat, and this whole runaround that we're giving ourselves.
Yeah, it's huge. You know, there's another gene I talk about in the book called COMT. And there's two variations of this gene that I discuss in the book. There's actually three. There's a fast, intermediate, and slow function. And other genes also can make it change its speed. But basically, there was a woman who found out that she has a slower COMT. So her dopamine, the norepi and epi, and her estrogen levels tend to be higher. So she's very type A, driven, getting things done. She doesn't really tend towards depression. So she's good spirits, but she's also susceptible to irritability, anxiety, insomnia, PMS, and estrogen-based cancers, and flying off the handle, and burnout. Okay. So pros and cons here. And she lived in New York City. And she was always struggling with insomnia and PMS and irritable. She would get stuff done. She was a real go-getter, but she was tired of these symptoms and she just couldn't figure it out. And you know, she was in the Strategene group, and she posted, she goes, I moved to the country where I have, you know, a few acres, and I have apple trees, and I grow my own food. And she goes, I'm still driven. I still get my stuff done. I'm still productive as all get out, but I don't have those symptoms anymore. Yeah, and I really, you know, when I say sometimes that the prescription is to move, I'm serious. And I don't take that recommendation lightly. I know it can be difficult, but I also know that the outcome of that can be huge. And I mentioned also, Jan, at our last conference, that woman who asked about if her genes were increasing her susceptibility towards panic disorders. Remember that? She had slow COMT, slow MAO-A, MTHFR, GST, SOD. She was a recipe for panic disorders. Mm-hmm. But she lived in environments where she had massive amounts of high xylene exposure, which cause disturbances in your brain. So, you know, your environment is key, whether it's chemicals or just, you know, a slower way of life. And I find myself every winter, the last 4 winters we've gone to Kauai, and here's the Seattle city guy driving a rental car, you know, feeling I have to get in front of everybody else. Everybody else is on Hawaii time and going small and slow. And by the time the vacation is wrapping up, I'm driving like they are. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm slowing down. I've slowed down my life a lot. I have to commute every day, so I use it to either learn or just think and reflect and relax. So basically, I have no stress on the freeway. Basically, I drive the lane, I drive the speed limit, and I just think. You know.
Nice, well done. Yeah, and you know, when I was in med school, I knew that I was a person that needed a lot of downtime. I'm very driven. I'm very type A, and I know I will burn out. I've been there a number of times, and it takes me a long time to recover. So when I was in med school, I asked every doctor that I worked with, I said, when was the last time you took a vacation? And they kind of looked at me like, what are you talking? What kind of question is that? And I said, no, I'm serious. When was the last time you took a vacation? And they just kind of shook their head and they're like, I don't know. And so I knew at that point, and they were always stressed. They always worked late, and they were coming in on weekends to finish charting. And I was like, hell no, I'm not doing that. So I built my business around my lifestyle. Mm-hmm. I didn't alter my lifestyle for my business. So if you're doing a job that is not of your values and doesn't support your choices that you want to do in your life, then change. I mean, I went to med school. I think I was in my first year. I was in my upper 20s because I finished my undergrad in 1997. I took 5 years. I had a successful landscape design and construction business while I was in college, undergrad, my first year. Or my last year when I was a senior, I already had a successful company going. And so I kept doing that because I enjoyed it, and it allowed me to travel around the world. And so, but then I got sick of it, and I finally went back to school to get my medical degree because I was ready to go. But that's why I asked about vacations, because I loved world travel. And that's how I met my wife, who was Russian. I met her in Estonia. So, and I just really wanted to throw that point out there is, if you're stuck doing something that you think is supportive of you because it's financially rewarding. And I was making 6 figures as a 20-year-old kid. My parents actually were pissed off at me that I went to school and got massively in debt and stopped my 6-figure income as in my 20s. But I wasn't happy. So I wanted to change.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if everybody's able to do that, but I definitely think we should encourage it, because the industrial work system is kind of tough on people.
It is very tough. And I think we always have a choice. The choice, it can be a long road. I mean, I was on food stamps. I was poor. I remember my wife, asking me a few times, Ben, can we go to the store? We don't have bread. And I was like, oh, not today, not today, not today. And I said, not today, because I didn't have money. I couldn't buy bread. So, it was hard. We were on the WIC program for 2 of our sons. But I knew that my values were natural medicine. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that I'd be loving it so much that whatever happened, and I would generate an income. But I knew it would be a hard road. And it was really hard. It was the hardest thing I ever did.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for me. I won't go into that story, but I had a similar experience. And I just had a long talk yesterday with a business partner of Joe Pizzorno. We discussed about that we really think, from our perspective, that most people are sick. Most people are in that comfort zone and don't know it. Their metabolism is not optimized. They're kind of having maybe under the hood, how do you say, damage, to tissues in the body or to organs. And they just don't know it until the symptomatics become so strong that they can feel it, which can be, 70% of organ damage or something. So
Right.
We were saying the market is huge. And even for people that want to get into natural medicine or, nutrition or any of those fields, there's still space, even though right now it seems hard for some grads, but because 90% of people don't even know what we're doing. They've never heard about it.
No, that's a great point, because I remember when I was doing my undergrad, I was actually pre-vet. I wanted to be a large animal vet because I grew up on a horse ranch. I wanted to be a horse vet. Mm-hmm. And so I'm riding the truck going to our next patient, which was a sick horse. And I asked the vet, I said, so, Doc, it's pretty competitive getting into vet school. And there's a lot of vets here in Seattle. Do you think I can find a job? And he looked at me and he smiled and he goes, there are a lot of vets here, but there's not very many good ones. Mm-hmm. And there's also, different types of niches and things that you can focus on as being a vet. And he goes, plus your awareness of how to handle horses is exceptional. He said, you can handle a horse very, very well, whereas a lot of people are just book smart. They don't know how to work with the animal itself. Mm-hmm. So, I think that there's always a need in a quote unquote crowded market. I'm a naturopathic physician in Seattle. I mean, this is a very densely populated naturopathic community. And, people get, fellow naturopaths don't refer because they think they might, not all of them, but some of them, and MDs too, mm-hmm. Don't refer because it's so competitive. They feel they might lose their patient. Well, I have the opposite mindset. I refer all the time, constantly. Mm-hmm. And, what I do is very focused, and I created something out of nothing. And there's a great book, 0 to 1 by, was it Peter Thiel? Have you read that?
Not yet.
Yeah. So 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, I think, invented PayPal along with a few other folks. like Elon Musk and those guys. The Power Seven. I think Mark Zuckerberg was in there and made Facebook, and then the other guy made LinkedIn. It was those 7 guys who founded PayPal are all doing amazing things right now, like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, SpaceX, Tesla. Incredible group of guys. But anyway, 0 to 1 is basically you are creating something out of nothing, and then there's no competition. There's zero competition, and you created the one thing. And that's another great book called The One Thing. So 0 to 1 is really good. And then The One Thing is another one. And Essentialism is another one. Those are the top, really, well, not top 3, but I read a lot of books. Those are all great. And I love the concept of 0 to 1, because there's always space for health coaches. There's always space for naturopaths. Whatever you want to do, there is space for it. Because if you love it, the Values Factor. I'm reading that now. The Values Factor by Dr. Joe Dispenza. That was recommended to me by Sean Croxton, who has a great short podcast called The Quote of the Day Show. And I learned about that book from there. And it's interesting because we talk about passions. We talk about, what are you passionate about? And it's really our values.
Right.
So if you orient your values towards health, then you'll be healthy. If you orient your values towards money, you'll have money. If you orient your values towards, helping, that's what you do. And you wonder why, if your values are so oriented towards educating yourself, and that's it, then you're going to be poor and not have any money. So you gotta balance your values and understand and balance. And it's a cool book. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, great. But if you find the stuff you love, you'll work 12, 16 hours a day and it won't be work, right?
That's right. I love my work. I mean, I was skiing for a full week, and I love the skiing, but my wife is like, God, the conditions are so good. Do you want to stay another day? And I said, no, I'm good. I want to get back. I want to get back to what I do.
So that's a good, actually, transition. So I wanted to ask you, so you've published the book, you've published the course with it, and I'm sure you still have a lot of work with that, but what's your mindset on now? Like, what are you planning to do for the future? Do you have anything?
Oh man. Yeah. I've got a multi-year plan already that I can't divulge all, but I will say that, the Strategene genetic tool that we have that uses 23andMe raw data, it's been a great report and is a great report, but I don't like it in that it's hard to update. We have hundreds and hundreds of new SNPs that I want to put into the report, but we can't do it easily without overwhelm. So we're creating a new strategy that will be much better for people, and that's we're making our own genetic chip now, and that's we'll be starting here probably in another month, actually making the chip, because we can add the chip we have is quite large. There's a number. There's thousands. There's probably 100,000 SNPs or more on it. But we're not reporting all of those. We're reporting, a fraction of them. But Strategene uses only research SNPs, right? That. And so, we don't show every single MTHFR variant that 23andMe has. We just show 2 because those are the ones that have research behind it. So, there might be 20 MTHFR SNPs that you have on a different report. We should report 2, and report 2 because those have evidence. So we have probably another 1,000+ SNPs that have evidence behind them. So we've done a lot of work there. We've got some amazing new formulations that are coming out. In fact, I just tested one last night, and it seems to be, I just had half a serving because I tend to make supplements pretty strong. So I took half a dose and my wife took half a dose, and it's for the liver. That's all I'll say at this point. And, I had a favorable response. We'll see. Still, my wife had a strong response, and this is a second variation that I've done, because with the first one, I had her bent over and with a lot of gas and pain. So I added some more carminatives and things to soothe that. And she didn't have any gas or pain this time around, but we still had a beneficial impact. What else?
I think you mentioned the website earlier, right?
Yeah. So Seeing Health, yeah, we're redoing seeinghealth.com, and we're going to be, that'll be all done. mtjafar.net has been a great resource for people. But it's a bit too fear based still. And, it's dated. The content is still quite good in many of those articles, but it's not consistent. It doesn't guide you through a journey of MTGFR. It doesn't remove the fear. It doesn't give you hope and inspire you. So we're going to be revamping mtgfr.net to create a sense of calm, to create a sense of empowerment, and to show you if your MTGFR gene is dirty or not, like real time. So, and if it is, we'll give you some actual recommendations right away to help clean that up. Now it's kind of scattered, here and there in various articles, and that goes back to your original question, Jan, of when do you know is the right time to write a book? And when I had mtgfr.net, when I first started, I still have it. When I first started it, I was just learning piecemeal, and that's what the articles are. So now we'll make a consistent workflow. And we're coming up with new websites too. I'll probably be launching folicacid.com, this year, a website dedicated just on folic acid, because I can't stand that one.
I keep talking to a lot of manufacturers about it. They're slowly starting to listen.
They're slowly starting to listen, some of them. And then I was emailed by a practitioner last night by this company. I'll just say it, Chak Lee. They have this whole presentation about how cyanocobalamin is better than methylcobalamin. And they have a whole presentation on how folic acid is the preferred form of folate over methylfolate. And I called nonsense on both of them.
Pretty much.
So the supplement companies that are using good types of folate, i.e. folinic acid and methylfolate, they've done the research. They know that they're better forms, and they've kicked out folic acid. Companies, I'm not saying all companies, but I'm saying that some companies are really defending the use of folic acid and cyanocobalamin, because those two nutrients are very, very inexpensive. It allows them to keep price points low, and it's easier to do mass production and keep prices low. To give you an example, folic acid, I'm shooting from the hip here, I'd say probably $4 a kilo for manufacturers to use. Now, methylfolate on the flip side is about $12,000 a kilo. So don't tell me that, one is better than the other, and also that's all you're concerned about. No, they want to keep their margins, and they have such mass number of supplements out there at a certain price point that by adding one different type of nutrient, it really drives the price up a lot. So I think that's what many supplement companies are faced with. And I'm not saying that's what Chak Lee's. Maybe Chak Lee really believes folic acid is great. I have no idea. But I do know that price point is a major consideration for people. And it's a consideration for me at Seeing Health for sure, but that's not what drives my formulations. What drives my formulations is efficacy and result, not price. Right. And if it's super expensive, like for example, I've been trying to make a vegan vitamin D liquid, and we got a sample back the other day. It's I think it's from algae, and it's 2,000 IUs per drop. But my cost to manufacture one bottle, guess how much do you think it is? It's a 1 ounce bottle, and it's 900 servings, 2,000 IUs per drop. So to give you a comparison, our current vitamin D at 2,000 IUs per drop that comes from sheep's wool, lanolin, is about $19, $20 retail for an ounce with 900 servings, which is still super cheap. So what do you think the vegan vitamin D liquid would cost?
Probably, I don't know, between 50 and 100, I don't know. More?
My cost straight from the manufacturer without labeling or anything was $78.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, not yet. So
I'll start reading algae.
Yeah, right.
Great. Yeah. I mean, so this is maybe not a good end, but I did have another question for you that I forgot to ask you. And that we're seeing so many people with low stomach acid, low bile, low digestive enzymes. What do you think about that? Is it just the permanent stress? Is it trauma? Like, what's going on there? Why is it so common? Or
And Dr. Jillian Tita, Dr. Jillian Sarno Tita is a colleague of mine, in fact, a classmate. And she focuses heavily on digestion, and she's really, really good at it. And she reminded me of how important the basics are. And I talked about this also at one of the ShyCons, I can't remember, where 35%, the first third of our digestion is the cephalic phase, which is the preparation of meal. So the senses, the touching the food, the smelling the food, seeing the food, hearing the food cook, tasting it as you're cooking it, expecting the food to come, all of these things are very important to stimulate our digestion, and we're ignoring every single one of them. We drive up to a store, we grab something, we open a box. We're in a rush. We're driving and eating, so we're not even focusing on the food. We're just feeling a hole in our gut. We're hungry.
I'm not sure.
And so we're not chewing. We 35% of our digestion is not even stimulated. Since that's happening, we're secreting the stomach acid, the bile, the pancreatic enzymes. So we're not absorbing the nutrients. We're not processing these things at all. We're just we're creating the sensation of fullness. That's it. But we're not absorbing the nutrients. So now we're more stressed because we're nutrient deficient. And then since we're stressed, our food choices go down. We're eating more carbs. We're eating more frequently because stress drives frequency of eating. I've proven that myself and others. So we're snacking with constant snacking, which is now increasing inflammation, which increases hunger and cravings. And it's this perpetual wheel that you cannot get out of without full on stepping back and resetting yourself, or just making a choice. It's like, damn it, I'm gonna make my food now. I'm gonna prepare my meal. I'm gonna sit down with nothing on the table, no electronics. We have no electronics at our house. I will not during dinner or meals. I will not let the kids use them. And it's a fight if they bring it out. Oh, I'm just checking them. No, you get rid of that damn thing now. So it's big, people are eating on with their phones right next to them. I saw this teenage kid at the airport. He had his cup like this with a straw. He was mindlessly drinking, had the straw in his mouth. He would take a bite of fries and he was on his phone the whole time. He had no concept of what he was putting in his mouth. Zero. So that's where it's all coming from.
So mindful eating, right? So
it's that simple. Yeah, the ABCs of clean genes. A is avoid, B is breathe, and C is chew.
Chewing. One day we'll talk about chewing. There's a big thing I found out one day that I'll tell you next time.
Oh, nice, good. I'm a huge fan of chewing. I'm usually the last one eating, and we just took 3 teenagers skiing, and going out to dinner to them was an experience, and they just wolf down their food, right? They're like part snake. And so this one kid, he ate his hamburger super quick, and he was done first. And we were driving home yesterday from Portland, and they were saying, Ashton, you eat so slowly. And I was like, no, he was done right away. Like, he was first. His hamburger was gone. And Ashton goes, well, that's because the kids made fun of me that I was eating too slowly. So I wolfed it down. I said, no, dude, you're the only one eating properly. If you're the last one to finish your plate, you're the only one who ate right out of all your friends. So he had this huge smile on his face. And my son turned and he goes, oh, you like that, didn't you? You love that. So now, there's a social peer pressure among kids. I mean, once the kid was ridiculed and he changed the way he ate from that. So that could have affected him his whole life, right? Whole life. He could have changed from a slow eater to a fast eater. Yeah. But I just told that one simple intervention, God knows how long he would have continued that fast eating and would have no clue.
It's crazy. So the chewing is a huge topic. I think we all, including probably both of us, even though I'm eating very slow and you're trying to eat really slow, I think we're all not chewing enough. But I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah, I'm sure. And, the food that we're chewing, what is that? So I mean, I know I eat processed foods. I mean, I had chips and salsa last night, and I was like, I don't eat 100% clean, but I know that I can handle about 20% processed food and, 80% good, solid, healthy food. And the recipes in Dirty Genes are, half of them are from my wife, and that's what we eat in our home. So that was pretty cool too.
Yeah. Maybe the very last thing is I talked to Walter Longo, the longevity researcher.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to the point that you said with the avoidance and letting go of things and not always adding stuff. So I realized that avoiding, for example, fasting 3 to 5 days or the intermittent fasting sometimes is the key for people. And they, we're trying to throw supplements in, but
yes,
sometimes the epigenetic concert started by that is really, really interesting.
Maybe I'm a huge fan of fasting. I consider fasting as a reset. Mm-hmm. But you got to do it right. And if you're too weak, just like sauna, if you're too weak, you shouldn't be doing it. Detoxing too. You're too weak, don't do it. There's you got to have certain. I see so many people. I'm sure you experience it too, Jan. Well, how do I do a heavy metal detox? I'm like, oh no. That's not something you just do willy nilly. Fasting is another one where you should really have very expert guidance in a book. Or work with a practitioner, because I fasted with a practitioner once and it was the best I ever felt in my life. I mean, I could not believe how amazing I felt. Mm-hmm. And I broke my fast on Cinco de Mayo having pizza and a beer. I was so mad at myself and my body just got wrecked. I woke up in the morning with no bad breath, mm-hmm. Zero, when I was that clean. I could not believe it. You wake up in the morning and your mouth is just not feeling clean. It's like I just brushed my teeth. It was incredible. And then I fasted again the following year without guidance, similar program. I did it longer, but I was working physical labor, and I wrecked myself. It took me about a year to recover from that fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a story we have to talk about more, maybe in time. I don't want to make this too long.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. And it was very interesting. Do you have something to say, like before finishing? Any last note, or are you good?
No, I would just, I'll just say, keep it fun. Health it shouldn't be a struggle. It's not, oh God, I need to avoid this, I need to avoid that. No, it's what improves you. Mm-hmm. What improves you, what it makes you a better person. That's how I look at it. That's why, it's Seeing Health, we have a lot of our stuff starts with optimal, because that's what I'm always about. I'm about optimizing, and that should be fun. So health should be fun. If you're not having fun, step back and just don't give a dang about it anymore. Just move away from it and come back at it, and discover your values around health, and discover your values, period. So definitely read the values factor, tune into the Quote a Day show, listen to more of Jan's stuff. But if you feel like you're just getting information overload and you're buying this and you're buying that and you're trying this supplement, trying that supplement, just take a break. Just take a break. We came home and my wife said, she pulled out the supplements out of the bag yesterday. She goes, we brought all these supplements for Theo. You didn't give him any. I said, yeah, I didn't. So just take a break and just enjoy. And that's all I got to say about that. Just,
I think that's great. That's good for people that are just struggling.
Yeah. So
great.
All right. Thank you, Jan.
Hey, nice talking to you. See you
Likewise.
soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.